It's time for the Bird Brains. News and notes about the Baltimore Orioles and their minor league affiliates. With our own Bird Brain hosts, Dave Biesecker and Jeff Baker.
Juice. What?
Buckle up, sit back, and enjoy. You never know what's coming with the Bird Brains.
Orange juice.
What do you mean, orange juice?
When you squeeze an orange, what do you get?
Well, I guess the obvious answer is juice.
You get orange juice, right?
Well, what's that got
You don't
to do?
get grape juice. You don't get anything that you know what you should expect when you squeeze an orange. You get orange juice. So what happens to what's been happening to this team whenever they get squeezed recently? You know, you get what you get.
They give
right?
up home runs.
Right, yeah, they give up. Why would you expect anything else other than what you get? But last night was a good example. You know, they got squeezed, and you got, you know.
Okay.
What you've been getting?
Well, we're recording a day early, so it's the day after the devastating loss against the Mets.
Tough one. Yeah.
After a beautiful three-game sweep.
They do a bill. They do what they did in Atlanta.
Right.
They sweep 3 games in Atlanta.
Right.
Okay.
And give you hope.
You're telling me there's still a chance,
There's still
right?
a chance.
And you get in against the New York Mets, and you're up, 6-2?
Yeah.
And you're in the 8th inning.
Have a big rally.
And you bring Baker in,
Yeah.
who's supposed to be your setup guy to get you to Bautista, and the announcers are already calling it a victory. Did you hear them?
Well,
They were. You got to admit it. They were doing that.
Well,
and what did we get? We get a.
Yeah.
Baker gives up two home runs, and we're tied, and we lose it in extra innings, and that's a little bit of what I'm come to expect.
Yeah.
Orange juice.
Orange juice.
Yeah, that's what you get.
Okay. Well, we've got a couple of games left here before the All-Star break. Actually, they're going to close out the season or close out the series with the Mets on Thursday, and then they have 3 at home against the Marlins. So that'll take them to the All-Star break. And then at the All-Star break this year, Major League Baseball is actually doing something with some promotion value and bringing the Major League Baseball draft into All-Star break time. And we are also doing some promotion as we brought in the Southern Information Desk. Our man Derek is back to talk about the draft this week. So welcome to the program again, Derek.
Thanks again for having me on here to talk a little bit about the draft. So,
all right.
Glad to have you.
Well,
I'm ready to roll.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
we've got the Orioles sitting at 40 and 50.
Yeah.
They're 10 games under 500 right now. And with all of that, they're 13 games behind the hottest team in baseball, the Toronto Blue Jays, by the way.
That's right.
So the Yankees have kind of faltered a little bit.
The Yankees are 3-7 in
the last 10. Yeah. So, we've got the bottom line is there's way too many good teams right now.
Yeah, if we would have any hope to getting in the wild card right now, we would have to hop over 7 teams.
Right. And 3 of them in our division.
3 in our division.
So as you start trying to play divisional games, you've got to win all your divisional games, and then you got to hope at best those teams when they play each other are splitting series, and that's
Right.
and what are the likelihood of that?
Yeah,
so it's probably not good. So I say that all to kind of tee up the fact that this year's amateur draft for the Orioles is going to be an important one.
Yeah, there's 3 picks, I believe, in essentially the first round, right? We have a pick at 19.
Right.
We have a pick at 31.
3 picks in the top 31.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And this is something to be excited about. While the season has not been necessarily, we can look forward to the draft this year because
Can
3
we?
picks in the top 30.
Do you like what's in what's in the draft, Derek? Do you see?
I like that you have 3 picks in the top 31. You got to think of it this way, guys. 2 of the best players, maybe the 2 best players on the team, Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westberg, they were both second-round guys.
True.
So
Right.
you can find, franchise-altering players at 30 and 31. I mean, I'm no draft expert, but if you're picking 3 times in the top 31, you got to be hoping to hit on a couple guys.
Well, last week we talked about the fact that Matt Blood, who is the guy really that runs the draft for the Orioles, he mentioned that just talent-wise, it wasn't real what he would call top-heavy, with talent, but that there was a lot of talent spread throughout both positions and depth-wise. So it was a deep draft. So is that kind of what you were falling into here as you looked into the draft for the Orioles? A lot of depth in it?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of depth in certain areas. There are 9 high school shortstops ranked in the top 30 players in this draft. So don't be surprised if the Orioles, even though it's not necessarily a position of need, that has been something that they've done.
I was just going to say, they have a history of drafting shortstops.
Mike Elias has never seen a shortstop he didn't like, But yeah.
So I also think starting pitching out of college is fairly strong.
Really?
So for me, that's something that I've looked at in the 19, 30, 31. That's all kind of in the same range, and those are the picks that I was really focusing on as to who could they select, who would fit into their system right now.
And do you guys think that pitching is a place where they ought to be looking this time, because that's something that Elias usually doesn't do. In his past, he hasn't drafted very many pitchers.
Right. So they never draft high school pitchers early.
Okay.
So I don't think that's in the plans. Now, there are a couple high school arms that are intriguing to me, but traditionally it's like college bats or high school shortstops. Fun fact, so their tendency overall is to wait to take pitchers until round 4 or later. Perfect example of this, in 2019, the Orioles drafted 19 pitchers. None of them in the first 7 rounds. So if that gives you any indication of how they draft. Now, to answer your question, Dave, I do think that we're in a different timeline now from how they've drafted the past 5 years. They need starting pitching depth badly. And I think that if you draft college junior or senior arms, that's kind of what they need, but that hasn't been what they've done in the past.
The thought is that maybe... Go ahead.
No, I would like to see them shift gears and kind of recognize that they have kind of accomplished what they set out to in drafting so many position players, and now they need to focus on, their arms.
And the thought would be, being a college player, that maybe they would get to the majors a little sooner than if they drafted a high school player.
Especially nowadays, because we're talking about these compensatory picks we got at 30 and 31, and those are because Corbin Burns and Anthony Santander were offered qualifying offers by the Orioles and ultimately signed in free agency with other teams. You also get compensatory picks now for graduating your draft picks to the major leagues soon, as quick as possible. You now get picks even earlier than the qualifying offer picks at the end of the first round. So there are a lot of incentives now more than ever to promote guys. So I do think that taking these college arms early, you would see them get to the major leagues potentially as early as next year. The Reds just did that with Chase Burns. He was their top pick last year. He just debuted a couple weeks ago. Obviously, Paul Skeens did the same thing.
Yeah,
so.
Well, and you're much more likely to get that if you're looking into the college ranks, because in essence, whereas 30 years ago, college baseball really didn't feed the majors as much as it seems to now. It has become a de facto minor league system.
And I think if you factor NIL in there, you're probably having college kids stay there longer now, because they're getting at LSU and at Arkansas and at these other
money.
They're getting money, and so they'll be able to be groomed at the college level for a little bit longer, because the money at college is going to be a heck of a lot better than the money that they're going to get at minor leagues, and so they can raise their stock there at the college level.
Yeah, I think another place that Baltimore has recently, because they've invested so much, is the international market too. So I think, so if Oriole fans that are listening to this podcast or broadcast is, if they come out of the draft without getting significant pitching upgrades somewhere, don't despair, because they still have that international market that they have been picking through kind of effectively. I mean, Sam Basayo being their only top 100 prospect right now, that's where he came from. So, that's it's not like they have to do it. Right. Not all is lost, because there are other places to go get it. But to your point, Derek, I am intrigued by the fact that you found this draft to be pretty deep with pitching.
College pitching. I mean, Dad, actually, that's another important thing to bring up, is just how the money works with all this. Having 3 picks in the top 31, you may see them reach for somebody, quote unquote. If you look at like a big board or top prospects list, they may end up taking somebody at 19 that's ranked closer to 40, because they don't want to use that money in this draft. And then maybe they go overslot on a high school prospect at 30 or 31. So and having 3 picks in the top 31, it's a blessing and a curse in that sense, because those are 3 pretty expensive picks to have. It's not like other sports where you still have to negotiate with these guys that you pick.
Right.
So,
well, a couple of things about the Major League Draft. First of all, the competitive balance picks are the only picks that a team is actually allowed to trade. You can't just trade picks like in football or basketball or whatever. You can't trade your regular draft picks around, but the compensatory picks you can.
So they don't trade up or down?
No. Oh. And the other thing, Derek touched on the bonus pool money as part of the CBA agreement with the players. They have this bonus pool, and the Orioles have the 5th most money in their allotment this year at $16.5 million, a little bit over that. And I think they used a little bit of that to trade for Alex, the catcher they got from the Yankees.
Yeah. Jackson or whatever.
Jackson. Yeah, Alex Jackson, yeah. So I think they gave the Yankees like $250,000 in bonus pool money for that. But go ahead, Derek. I'm sorry to step in on you. But
you know what? Honestly, I wanted to kind of look at a couple things here, specifically some players to look for, because that's always fun.
Right.
Because when the pick happens and there's some name that you've never heard, and you'd be like, oh, why didn't they draft Gage Wood? All right. So he's the guy for me at 19. You may be familiar with his name because he's kind of a famous college player now. He's a right-handed pitcher for Arkansas. Before the College World Series, he was end of the first round, projected early second round. He threw a 19 strikeout no-hitter in the College World Series, grazed the jersey on a batter in the 8th inning, or it would have been a perfect game.
Wow.
So 19 strikeout no-hitter. He's got pretty, up to 98 fastball. So he's rising up these draft boards. People are talking about him potentially now going in the top 15. If he were to fall to 19, that's a guy, like I was saying earlier, he could potentially be in your rotation by the All-Star break next year, by this time next year, potentially.
He's that kind he's that kind of talent, you're saying.
Well, I will say this. So he has had shoulder issues in the past, and that was the main reason he missed like a month and a half to start this year. And so he wasn't even the number 1 on his own team. It was a kid named Zach Root, who is a left-handed pitcher. And he was 5th in D1 this year in strikeouts, and his fastball sits around 94 up to 97. He's projected to go in that like 30 to 40 range.
Okay.
So those are 2 guys from the same school that I think could potentially be targets for the Orioles.
So
just they would make sense.
So even with Elias's recent history of not taking pitchers with real high draft picks, you're kind of saying that there could be some significant pitching available where they're picking in those first 3 picks?
Well, I think he'll probably end up picking one pitcher out of those 3 picks. Right. So
okay, we'll put you on
notice for that one. That's a bold prediction.
That's a bold take right there. I mean, most Oriole fans wouldn't see Elias doing that.
Yeah, I think he'll take 1 out of 3. I've got some other guys that are position players that I think would fit what he normally looks for too. So here's a guy potentially for pick 19 that would be one of these guys that you would look at and be like, okay, well, these draft boards have him closer to 30, 40, but he could potentially sign for a little less at 19 and then give you more money to spend later in the draft.
Right.
Andrew Fisher, he's a first or third baseman for Tennessee. He transferred a couple times. He was at Duke and went to Ole Miss, ended up at Tennessee. He was good at all 3 stops, but left-handed hitter. This year in the NCAA, he was 3rd in homers and 5th in walks. Wow. And so I think he kind of fits what they need, and he excelled at every level. As a freshman, he set Duke's home run record, and so I feel like that's a position of need, and he's a good college bat that maybe you could sweep up. He's definitely going to be there at 19, it sounds like. Mm-hmm. Another guy, so keep in mind, the last 2 drafts, they've used their first-round picks on center fielders, Vance Honeycutt and Enrique Bradfield Jr. Right. So,
and they keep waiting.
Neither one of them is.
They keep waiting for Honeycutt.
Neither one of them is really.
Yeah, because Honeycutt struggled with the bat in Aberdeen, and not that they're giving up on him or anything, but I do think that a lot of Birdland has the 3-alarm about to go off on him because he struggled much more than they thought he would. And if you miss on one of these top picks, that's almost, I don't want to say it's a year wasted, but certainly it's not what you're looking for. You got to hit on a couple of these.
What's Bradfield been doing this year? Anybody know?
He's hitting around 240, 250 and swiping bags, and he's still in Double-A. So I think the hope for him would be that he starts next year in Triple-A.
Right. And
depending on what they end up doing with Mullins, he could end up by this time next year maybe being your center fielder.
Right.
He's got to get a shot, Bradfield does, because even if he's not hitting, he brings so many other things.
He's a disruptor. He's a disruptor, and he's a good defense.
He's elite in the outfield. Right. So you've got to see what you get. You know what I mean? At least.
Sure.
But Honeycutt is really struggling, and if they want to try and double down on that and just maybe give themselves 2 shots at hitting on a player like that, J-Slav Violette is an outfielder from Texas A&M that has been kind of falling. Uh-huh. He was a potential top 5 pick last year, and even out of high school, and elected to go back to school. So he's a 4-year senior. Didn't have a bad year this year. And they say he's the biggest power bat in the draft.
So what has him fallen?
But he has a fairly high swing and miss rate. And just the fact that he stayed in college all that time, now he's a older, I guess, prospect.
Sure.
And so,
is he big,
but that's
is
a guy that
is he a real big guy?
Yeah, but he plays center field.
Oh,
he's 6'4" and but very athletic and left-handed bat and glove.
Right.
Yeah, so who knows? But that's the type of guy they draft. Cam Camarella is a center fielder from Clemson. He profiles more like Enrique Bradfield, contact hitter plus speed.
Right.
I don't know if you really want him, but those are some guys that kind of fit the Mike Elias profile as outfielders.
Mm-hmm.
And then I mentioned the Fisher there as the first/third baseman. There is a shortstop, a high school shortstop that has been connected to the O's. which is kind of what you have to do ahead of the draft, is make connections with certain players so that you already have like a pseudo agreement worked out if you were to select them. Like, hey, because these guys, like, he's committed to Wake Forest. Like,
Sure.
These guys get drafted, they could still go to college.
And with NIL, that changes the equation.
Sure does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Josh Hammond is a shortstop / third baseman from North Carolina. It's rumored that he has met with the Orioles, and he might be a little big for a shortstop. They're saying maybe at the pro level will be a third baseman. He's like 6'1", 220.
Isn't he isn't North Carolina where Honeycutt came from? I want to say.
Well, he's going to Wake Forest, and Honeycutt went to North Carolina. But yeah, he's high school. I don't know where in North Carolina.
Okay.
But they say he wants to pitch still too. So that's the thing you see looking into these high school guys. Like half the pitching prospects, it's like they're dual players still.
Right.
So
all your best players pitch in high school.
That?
All your best players.
Exactly, and they all play.
No, it's true.
They either pitch or play shortstop.
Yeah,
so
almost all your best players.
9 shortstops in the top 30. Well, of course you do.
Not that they're all primarily pitchers. I'm just saying almost all your best players wind up pitching.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, that's kind of the lay of the land, Dad. There is one high school pitcher I wanted to run by you just for fun. His name is Jack Bauer, which I thought
okay,
which I thought was funny. But listen to this. So he's a left-handed pitcher. Mississippi State he's committed to. As a junior, I guess the scouts were going to his high school, some prep school, to see somebody else, and then he was hitting 96, whatever. That's how these stories go.
Right.
How people get noticed. But this year, he's been sitting his fastball at 98, and in 3 different outings, Jack Bauer has touched 101, 102, and 103.
Wow.
So
you can't coach that.
Some gas.
You can't coach that for sure. So yeah, and that's the kind of power arm that Major League Baseball is in love with right now.
Just schedule his Tommy John surgery now.
Yeah, just go ahead and put that on the schedule and hope for the best. But that's a good point, because that would be the kind of kid that you'd want to have a little extra bonus pool money available to later in the draft to take him and be able to entice him not to take the college offer. So that would be a reason to have money available. So.
A lot of these flamethrowers have trouble with control. Did you look deep enough to find out if they can actually throw strikes?
They say he's a thrower. Yeah, he's a thrower, not a pitcher.
Right.
Yeah, that's
well, you put him in the laboratory and you get him to throw strikes, and now you got something. Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, so I thought he was fun just because of the name and the stuff, but there's some other college arms that you can keep an eye on. Patrick Forbes out of Louisville. He's a right-handed pitcher. Riley Quick out of Alabama. I wanted to bring him up.
Nice, good name.
He's a big boy. 6'6", 255.
Oh, see, that's a profile. That right there, those 6'6", 6'8" guys, that is definitely a Mike Elias body profile for a pitcher.
Well, you get him on the mound, and he's throwing a ball from 58 feet.
I know. Yeah. So go ahead, Derek.
Well, I'd love to see them take a shot on him. He blew out his elbow in 2024.
Oh, he's already been through it.
Okay, so he's got a fresh Tommy.
He's already had it.
Yeah, that's our guy.
And it gets even better. He pitched a full season this year. He made it all the way back. And he pitched a full season.
Wow.
And he was pumping up to 98. His fastball. So
that's awesome.
He's already been through it and made it out on the other side.
What's his name again? I need his name.
Riley Quick, right-handed pitcher, Alabama.
And Riley Quick from Alabama.
And he throws 99.
He's in the top 40 available.
Oh,
okay,
so,
right in.
He's in our sweet spot then.
Great last name for a fastball throwing pitcher.
Right.
Riley Quick.
Yeah, because the Orioles have pick number 58 as well in the second round. After those first 3, they're going to pick at 58 and then 69, and
that's a lot of picks close together.
Yeah, and then at 93. So they've got, a number within the top 100 picks. So, a guy like...
Well, and they've done their homework on these guys probably to a fault. Like you hope that they haven't overanalyzed all of it, because I can see in looking at this over the past couple of days how you could do that.
Yeah. I can't imagine what they go through, these draft boards and all that, because it's such, as opposed to maybe football teams that have to scout all of the major football programs in the country. You've got a whole South America, Central America, Cuba. You got a whole world. Japan,
and every high school.
Yeah, and all the high schools. I mean, it is
those international players aren't in the draft.
No, but you have to
consider them in that.
You got to keep them in the mix,
right. So you've got a lot of evaluations to do. Was kind of my point.
I just can't imagine either being a general manager and trying to take into account, what are we going to do this month,
right?
With players that are we a buyer or are we a seller? And it looks like we're probably going to be a seller. And then what are you doing for next year? How do you keep a competitive team on the field for next year? And then you're trying to think 3 years down the road with the guys we're talking about right now. How do you keep all that straight?
It's a lot of and at all the levels, because if you figure you've got a Florida Coast League team that you want to field, you got a low A, a high A, all of that comes into play in these decision-making things, because I think they're kind of slotting players when they draft them, especially where they want to start them. Most of them, I think, start at single A, some of them maybe even a little lower than that. But a lot of the international kids start in the actual rookie league.
In the Gulf Coast League.
Yeah, but because they're a lot younger, and high school guys too. But so... Well, Derek, I can't thank you enough for pitching in all the good draft info, because it's certainly going to be a thing. I don't think, honestly, based upon how the season's gone, we're one of two of the biggest disappointing teams in all of Major League Baseball. The Braves are the
Braves
other,
in New Orleans,
right? Which we swept.
That was interesting, by the way, listening to the Braves post-game show. We lost 3 in a row to Baltimore.
They're hating life. So, so looking forward to the draft and seeing Ryan O'Hearn compete in the All-Star game. That'll be fun.
It will be.
And all of that. So we will certainly keep our eye on the draft and keep those names that you spit out there in the forefront of our mind. We'll see how it ends up. And so
I got a question, a parting question to kind of wrap this up.
Okay.
So they got those 2 compensatory picks for Santander and Burns.
Right.
Qualifying offer, you got to offer $20 million.
Right.
Okay, so here are your guys for this year, if they don't trade them. Ryan O'Hearn, Cedric Mullins, Zach Eflin. Are you offering $20 million for next year to any of those guys?
Yes.
Which ones?
O'Hearn and Eflin.
Okay. Well, then you could potentially be getting 2 more picks, because they'll probably sign elsewhere for more money.
Well, maybe. I don't know I don't know what the market's going to be for a guy like Eflin who came off of such a.
I can't imagine right now anybody's going to really be taking a flyer on Eflin,
and that's why I think at the trade deadline they're going to stay in Baltimore, because I don't know that there's going to be a big market for.
I think O'Hearn's a hot commodity.
I think O'Hearn is definitely a hot commodity, but you might as well get something.
And of course, Charlie Morton too.
He's a hot commodity.
He's gone.
I would think he'd be gone.
Charlie's gone.
He's gone.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to bring him back next year. No. So he's gone.
Who would have thunk that he would end up being a trade piece?
Yeah.
Well, I and look at Trevor Rogers. I mean, there might be people. I don't know his contract situation.
Oh, he's
there's
going to be control.
He's under team control.
Yeah, they've got him.
You want to keep him right now.
Oh, sure.
The way he's throwing, he looks like he's put it back together.
Well, as much as I hate to let you know, it's time.
Oh,
we are done here. So, again, thanks, Derek, for the draft info, and we'll try to keep our heads above water this week as we watch the Birds cruise into the All-Star break. So, well, for the Bird Brains, I'm Jeff Baker.
I'm Dave Biesecker.
And thank you, Derek.
Your draft expert, Derek Baker.
All righty. Go O's!
Oh.